welcome to Current Issues. I'm your host, Hesham Tillawi. Well, tonight, ladies and gentlemen, it will be 2 weeks probably before we see you again. I will be headed to Jerusalem for the Jerusalem Convention that we have, or conference that we have been talking to you about in the last few weeks. And it's a pretty good program actually. I'm gonna go through the program very quickly of so you'll know exactly what we are going to be doing. We're gonna have some videos, we'll have some pictures. So when we come back, we will show you what we have done and how interesting the trip would be. Now, tonight, of course, we're not going to spend it talking about the Jerusalem Convention. We will be speaking about the debt ceiling that you have been witnessing our politicians actually fight over. We're going to tell you what debt ceiling means and what it means to you as a citizen of this country, and also what it means to our children and their children and their children's children. But before we dip into the ceiling, the debt ceiling, let's talk about our program for the Jerusalem Conference. Now, the Jerusalem Conference, of course, will convene officially in Jerusalem on the 20th. That will be the opening of activities on the 20th, but actually activities will begin a few days before in Jordan. On the 18th, we have a huge uh, public activity going on in a town near Amman called Salt. And what we are going to do there, actually, we are being hosted in this town. When they found out about the Jerusalem conference, they wanted to host everyone who's going there and have a huge celebration or activity in there. It's going to have actually on the 18th of July. It will be, they're going to have a book fair. They're going to have like a fashion show, a Jordanian Palestinian fashion show. We're going to have music and food and national Palestinian songs and Jordanian dabka dances. They have invited a lot of people to go. It's going to be inside and outside. There will also be I guess, a art exhibition. So we have a lot of people interested in this thing in Jordan, and they will be joining us in Assault at 6 o'clock. So if you live in Jordan or if you are in Amman or around there, come see us in Assault. And of course, the next day we will go down to Jerusalem where we have planned an evening reception. We invited members of Knesset, the Palestinians, of course, and we invited many of the dignitaries there in Jerusalem to come join us so we can tell them what we are all about. And the next day, on the 21st, we will take a tour bus that's going to take us through the destroyed villages of 1948, where Israel has actually destroyed many of those villages, massacred many of the people there, and many of the people had to flee. And we will be visiting some of the Palestinian cities on that side of the world, where we will be going to Haifa, Akka, Nazareth. That's where Jesus actually lived. And many programs are scheduled in all of these cities. We will go the following day, which will be the 22nd in Ramallah, where we will have a huge reception in Ramallah with many of the dignitaries and the ministers there in the Palestinian Authority and the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization, and many of the non-governmental organizations there. They are invited. Then we will go and visit the president there, Mahmoud Abbas, and visit the tomb of the late President Yasser Arafat, where we will, everybody will see what is going on there. And then from there, we will go to one of the towns, either Belin or Belain or Nalin, where every Friday they have an activity going on there where they're resisting the apartheid wall that is being built to actually choke the life out of these cities. So we will be joining one of those activities there. And after that, we will go visit some of the towns like Nablus and Tulkarem, which it will be a lot of interesting. It'll be an interesting journey, an interesting trip. So this is very much, in a nutshell, what our program will be on this. This is going to be, remember, this is going to be an annual thing. And if you are interested in joining us next year, it will also be in the summer, probably the same thing in July. And so plan on joining us. We will be visiting Jerusalem, where the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is. And next year, actually, we will add Bethlehem to the program and Hebron, where you will be able to see the Church of the Nativity there. So plan it. Come with us next year with the Jerusalem Conference. Well, let's get into tonight's program, or tonight's topic, which is the debt ceiling. That's what it is. Now, let me tell you something. If you are credit worthy, banks will give you money, will loan you money. At first, you would have to fill out an application telling them how credit worthy you are. They will check you out, how many assets you have, what are they worth, what is your income, how stable your job is, and they will go back through your credit history to see how good you are. And based on that, they will give you credit. Now, if you have very much exhausted all the credit that any bank will give you, you have very much sold all of your assets, you very much maximized your credit cards, and well, if you fit any of those categories or all of them, like the federal government is, well, that's the shape that the federal government is in. Revenue is a lot less than what it takes to run this country. So you have choices to make. You can either cut spending, you can increase taxes on the people, or you can find somebody who is willing to actually loan you the money. And that's exactly, because you see, comes August, the limit that we have put on ourselves, and by the way, this is probably the first time that this fight in Congress and this debate in Congress is taking such a public debate. Normally they do it and you don't even hear about it, like they did it in 2010. Obama raised the debt ceiling. And by the way, we do have some pictures just to kind of give you an idea of what, we have some graphs just to give you an idea of what the debt ceiling was and what it is now and how it was actually escalated. Because right now it stands at like $14 trillion. If you know what $1 trillion is, most of you don't even know what $1 billion is. But if you notice, right there where Bush kind of in 2001 very much started pushing the debt ceiling, which was like in 2001, it was about, I guess, about $6.5 trillion. And then it kept going up and up and up and up almost every year until, George Bush left. It was about, I guess, about $11 trillion. Now, what we are in 2011, it's about almost $15 trillion. That is how much money we can borrow. Because, and we have a little actually clip that will make you, we're not going to go through in details because we're going to explain to you what a debt ceiling is and why is it so important to our economy. And now the fight you see in Congress, but you see how like in 2020, it's going to be, if we continue doing what we're doing now, it's going to be over $25 trillion. It'll be about, $26 trillion. That's how much money we can borrow. That's how much money now, that doesn't mean that's how much we can pay back. No, it just says that the government is allowing, or the law is allowing the government of the United States to borrow up to $26 trillion. That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. But now, what happens in August? We're not going to tell you what happens in August, but we're going to tell you in a little bit, but let's tell you so you will understand what will happen in August. Right now, the fight in Congress, now they know they have no choice but to raise the ceiling, period. Because they know they cannot raise taxes on the people in the United States, period. They know they cannot really cut the spendings that would actually offset like a $9 trillion deficit. Now, $9 trillion deficit is a lot of money, and you cannot cut spending to actually offset that. They can't come to you because you are maximized with your taxes. Now, eventually, what they are counting on, that they will find some creditors that they know that it's going to come time in the United States where people would have to step in to help the government pay their debt. They know that. But they're not going to come to you now. They're going to keep it until whatever president in 10 years or so that has to come to you and say, you know what? We can no longer borrow money because nobody is going to loan us any money. Right now, we're having a hard time actually finding people who will loan us money. Many countries, such as China, they told us, we don't trust the stuff that we buy in these treasury bills that we are buying from you. We don't trust them anymore. We don't think you can even pay it. Why? Because they know us. The revenue that the federal government is bringing in is a lot less than what it takes to spend, or the spending that the government has to do. Imagine if you are making $10,000 a year and you are spending $15,000 a year. How long are you going to get away with that before the banks shut you out, before your friends shut you out, before your family shuts you out, before the whole world says, you know what, you need to go into bankruptcy? And if you go into bankruptcy, well, guess what? Your family, your friends that you probably helping a little bit, or they're probably depending on you because of probably your reputation that was good at one time and people are actually helping them out because of you. Well, guess what? When you fall, they're falling with you. And that's exactly what will happen comes August if they don't raise this debt ceiling and creditors know that they can actually loan this country money. The whole economy of the whole world is going to tank. So they know this is not just the United States. If they don't raise, because if you don't have money when you are going through bankruptcy, if you don't find somebody to come and help you out, you're going to be out on the streets. If you are out on the streets, your mother's out on the streets because she lives with you. Your children are out on the streets because they live with you. You probably have a couple of more friends. Then everybody is out on the streets. If the United States goes out on the streets, many countries and many economies in the world that are dependent, people in Washington know that. And they already know exactly what they want to do, but they want to play this politics things where the Republicans will tell you, hey, don't cut spending on the rich, don't raise taxes, don't do this. We need to cut spending in these programs. and also you have people on the Democratic Party saying, no, 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 we cannot cut down on these programs, and they always bring you like Social Security. So you'll say, it's like, oh, they're going to cut Social Security. No, there are plenty of programs that we can cut that is not going to actually affect anybody in the United States. And some of these programs, number one, don't do wars. Don't do wars. Wars is actually what put us there. Wars that are not fought for us. Wars that are fought for Israel because Israel wants these wars. That's why we're doing it. That's why we are paying the price. I told you this 9 years ago, actually. 9 years ago. And I actually looked up some of my old videos when I said, and some of you who have been following me for a long time, you will remember this. I said the war that we will lose is the economic war. You remember, now we are in that phase. Now we are in the losing phase of the economic war because we have borrowed our way into wars. We have borrowed our children's future into wars. You see, it's not like we borrowed that money and we have something to show for. No. It's just like fireworks. You go and spend $200 on fireworks on the 4th of July. Well, you enjoyed seeing the sparkling in the skies. That's it. So that $200 is gone. No more. You have nothing to show. You just have to clean the streets after you finish your fireworks. That's what we in. We spend billions, $1 trillion. Try $1 trillion. Do you know how much $1 trillion is? Try 1,000 billion. Do you know what $1 billion is? Try 1,000 million. Just divide $1 trillion by the people in the United States, 300 million. You do the math and see how much money each one of us would have gotten for fireworks over Baghdad, for fireworks over Afghanistan, and we are not any safer today than we were even after September 11. The world is not safer because of what we have done. Even today, after we spend $1 trillion on war, what do we have to show for that money? When you do the math, you will see that each one of us would have gotten thousands and thousands of dollars, and we would have lived happily ever after. But no, now that money that we spend on in the skies of Iraq, guess what? The national debt, your share of the national debt is about $70,000. That's how much your share of the national debt and every one of your children today. Forget about raising the debt ceiling because that's just for them to borrow money. We're talking about the money that's already being borrowed and has to be paid. The federal government is not even maintaining the interest on the money borrowed. Many of you know what I'm talking about because sometimes you could not even pay the interest on all the credit cards and all the loans that you had, and you had to lose it all. You wish if somebody would have said, you know what? Yeah, let's give him more credit because, you know, he doesn't have a job. He maximized all his credit cards. He can't pay his mortgage. He is he lost his job. Right now he's working a part-time job. So let's give him more money. Do you think in real life, do you think that will even work? Forget about, you're not going to find any crazy bank who's going to give it to you. But let's assume that you're going to find a crazy bank who's going to give it to you and say, hey, look, we feel sorry for you here. You get another, we're going to raise your ceiling. You maximize your credit cards. You only had 20,000. Now we're going to give you another 10. So now it's 30,000. You think it's going to happen in real life? No. But if it happens, you think it's going to work? Of course not. Because the more money they give you, the more you're going to spend and the more debt you're going to be in. And then if you're having a problem servicing the debt you having now, you're going to have a hell of a time servicing the debts that you are going to. In a sense, it doesn't work. In a math, just simple math, it doesn't work. In metrics, it doesn't work. In any physical science, it does not work. Forget it. So why do we think it's going to work? Because it's politics. Because these politicians are going to do it. These politicians have an election coming up. They want to use this to convince you that they are better. That's why. That's why we find them fighting almost long party lines on this one. How come they're not fighting long party lines on Israel? How come they're not fighting with the $10 billion that we are giving Israel every year? How come they're not fighting that? Now, you see how the votes actually, every time you had a debt ceiling, increase in that debt ceiling, it very much fell on the party in power. Because they're the ones who have to pay. You see, the party that is not in power, they don't care if the government shuts down because they can blame it on the party in power. When you have parks are closed, when you have postal services closed, when you have nobody is working, nobody's getting paid, yeah, it's going to be a government shutdown. Somebody's going to be blamed. So the party in power goes out and actually borrows more money. Now, we do have a little clip. I hope you got my analogy of if you broke, you broke. But now, what you have to do is get in the fight, because raising the debt ceiling already know it's going to happen. The federal government already know it's going to happen, because these politicians in Washington know that they cannot let this go. They can't. It's impossible. Because we will go through, you think depression? No, think again. And they might call it a double dip recession? No. Think worse. Think if we default on these loans and we cannot get any more, the world economy will tank. You think these countries out there are going to forgive us? No. So it's going to happen. Debt ceiling is going to go up. No question about it. But is it the right thing to do? Of course not. Because in a physical sense, it's not the right thing to do. And it will never happen. Now, by the way, if anyone wants to weigh in on this, you're more than welcome. But let's go ahead and tell people what the debt ceiling is all about.
Greetings and welcome back.
Whatever, I have questions that need answers.
Fire away, Captain Obvious.
What the hell is the debt ceiling?
Oh shit, here we go again. A debt ceiling is the legal limit on how much money the federal government can borrow. Before 1917, Congress had to approve borrowing each time it came up. In order to allow for more flexibility, as the nation entered World War I, lawmakers agreed to give the federal government blanket approval for most types of borrowing, as long as the total was less than the established limit.
Why is this an issue now?
The U.S. government relies on the borrowing of money in order to operate, because government expenses far exceed revenue, and now the nation's debt has reached the legal limit of $14.3 trillion.
Big deal. Who cares?
Shut your pie hole and listen up. Think of Uncle Sam as a person that spends more money than he earns. So to pay the monthly bills, he has refinanced his home and used his credit cards to cover the shortfall. The problem is, now he has used all his credit and needs to pay an increased mortgage payment, plus minimum monthly credit card payments, in addition to all his usual monthly bills, but he has no savings, no credit, no money, and very little income. In fact, the interest alone on his house loan and credit cards is more than his monthly income.
What a stupidly responsible bastard.
You got that right.
What happens if the debt ceiling is breached?
Many sheeple claim that if Congress does not increase the limit, the United States may default on its debt obligations. With fragile global recovery counting on U.S. economic stability, the debt limit issue could roil international financial markets. Democrats and Republicans claim that if the debt limit is not raised, we would be inviting economic catastrophe.
Why do they claim that?
They argue that if the government was unable to borrow funds, then the government would have to downsize. This would result in all non-essential federal employees being sent home. National Park.
That sounds like a good thing to me. What's the big freaking deal?
If the government admits that it is unable to meet financial obligations, then confidence in the United States would evaporate overnight, leading to a massive crash in the dollar, dramatically higher interest rates, due to a loss of creditworthiness, and a crash in equities markets. The shock would quickly spread throughout the world, and would very likely lead to a serious global recession, possibly worse than the one seen a few years ago. Feeling would be suicidal for the nation's short-term financial well-being.
So if both parties agree, why not just raise the limit? What is everyone arguing about?
In the past, raising the debt ceiling has been a perfunctory matter. The ceiling has been raised almost 100 times since it was established, and has gone from less than $1 trillion in the 1980s to $6 trillion in the 1990s. The most recent time the ceiling was boosted was in February 2010. Legislation to raise the debt limit usually causes partisan posturing on fiscal responsibility, but little real drama. This time is different.
No shit, Sherlock. But why is this time any different?
With the national debt at its highest point in 50 years, compared with the size of the U.S. economy, the debate about the ceiling has become entwined with the larger issue about slashing the budget. The budget debate revolves around balancing two equally unpopular remedies: sharp cuts to popular government-funded programs, and major tax increases. Republican lawmakers refuse to raise the limit without a commitment from the White House for more spending cuts. The Obama administration has refused to make any spending cuts, arguing that ensuring the government's solvency is an issue far too important and should not be held hostage by budget issues.
Hold on. Just how much money are we talking about?
Under the spending plan President Obama submitted to Congress, lawmakers would have to raise the limit by nearly $2.2 trillion just to see the nation through next year. Under the more austere blueprint by House Republicans, the government would require about $1.9 trillion in fresh debt by October 2012.
Okay, I think I got it now. But why does the United States have so much debt anyway?
The list of reasons is absurdly long and include salaries, pension plans, expense accounts, operational expenses, and many other perks for government employees, elected officials, and unnecessary and unconstitutional governmental regulatory departments and agencies, mismanagement of Social Security funds, communist social entitlement programs such as government grants, subsidies, food stamps, healthcare, welfare, the cost of wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, U.S. occupation of 702 overseas military bases in more than the United States and its territories. That doesn't include numerous secret bases in the Middle East. Not to mention an additional $3.9 trillion spent on bailouts under the guise of economic stimulus. I could go on for hours.
Oh, please don't. It's too damn depressing.
Do not be fooled. There is no real cause for concern here. This is all one big load of horseshit. There are hundreds of easy and simple solutions. Not that it matters. Everything is business as usual. This is just another circle jerk to distract the sheeple from the important issues. It is typical, bureaucratic, sleight of hand, bullshit. Hey, everybody, look over here. Don't pay attention to what my other hand is doing over there.
Okay then, how do you see this circle jerk playing out?
In the end, the debt ceiling will be raised. It will be interesting to see just how far this ends up going before a deal is finally reached. Nobody wants to be known as the party responsible for the country defaulting on its obligations.
Okay, Mr. Know-It-All. What are these hundreds of easy and simple solutions?
That is a subject of discussion for an entirely different time.
In trouble. That's what it means. It means we are in trouble big time. And it is true. All this fight you see in Congress, that's just to see how many votes they can gather for the next election. That's all it is. But that says that we are borrowing and borrowing and borrowing more than what we can handle. And at the end, you will be paying 60% taxes. You see, right now, nobody wants to touch that because right now it's not the thing to touch. Number one, middle class is totally loaded, overloaded with taxes. The poor are not paying taxes anymore, and the rich are not paying taxes. It is all coming from the middle class. And the middle class is the working. So, what to do about it? Well, let's tell you how we get money. And we have another little clip that you will find very interesting between Ron Paul and the director or the chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank. Let's play the second clip so you will understand how we get money.
Mr. Paul, the subcommittee chair, for 5 minutes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, we hear that in the future we're going to have a better economy, and everybody hopes so. But it's hard to believe. It's hard for me to believe anyway, because I look back on our past 3 years, and what Congress has done, what the Fed has done. We've literally injected about $5.3 trillion, and I don't think we got very much for it. The national debt went up $5.1 trillion. Real GDP grew less than 1%. So I don't think we've gotten a whole lot. Unemployment really hasn't recovered. We still have 7 million people that have become unemployed. And one statistic that is very glaring, if you look at the chart, is how long people are unemployed. The average time used to be 17 weeks. Now it's nearly 40 weeks they stay unemployed. So nothing there reassures me. And also, when we talk about prices, we're always reassured there's not all that much inflation, and we're told that they might start calculating inflation differently with a new CPI. Of course, we changed our CPI a few years back. There's still a free market group that calculates the CPI the old-fashioned way, and they come up with a figure. In spite of all this weak economy, the prices have gone up 35%, 9.4% every year. And I think if you just went out and talked to the average housewife, she'd probably believe the 9% rather than saying it's only 2%. So I would say what we've been doing isn't very reassuring with all this money expenditure. But my question is related to the overall policy. Spending all this money hasn't helped, and yet many allies that would endorse so much of what's been going on, whether it's the Fed or the Congress, they recognize that consumer spending is very, very important, and they concentrate on that. But the $5.1 trillion didn't go to the consumers. It went to buying bad assets. It went to bailing out banks. It went to bailing out big companies. And lo and behold, the consumer didn't end up getting this. They lost their job, and they lost their houses and mortgages, and they're still in trouble. But my question is, if you took that $5.1 trillion and said that consumer spending is good, you could have given every single person in this country $17,000. Why is it the program of both the Congress and the Fed to direct the money to the people who have been making a lot of money, instead to the people who, if you argue that the consumer needs to spend the money, I obviously don't advocate this, but I would suggest, maybe it could have worked better, couldn't have worked any worse. But what is the reason we direct it toward the banks and the big corporations, too big to fail, and we don't pay that much attention to the consumer if it's true, and I don't know if you agree with that or not, that consumer spending is an important issue.
Well, it is an important issue, Congressman, but you're mistaken in saying that the Federal Reserve has spent any money. Um, you say $5 trillion. We have lent money. We have purchased securities. That's not buying. That's not dissipating. The money. We've gotten all of the money back. As an article over the weekend by Alan Sloan showed, in fact, the Fed has been a major profit center for the U.S. government. We've turned over profits in the last 2 years of $125 billion. So we are not costing any money in terms of budget deficits or anything like that.
Okay, hey, stop it for a second. Stop it.
Of course, the reason the Federal Reserve was founded a century ago was to try.
Stop it for a second. Okay. And I want you to back it up for about like 15 seconds or so, because I want to explain something to you. He is making it sound as if the Federal Reserve Bank is a government agency. He said the Federal Reserve Bank actually turned like $5 trillion profits or something. The Federal Reserve Bank is a private agency. Yeah, it is an act of Congress that actually legitimized it, but actually it is a private institution that produces money. That's what they do. They produce money and they sell it at interest to our government, to our treasury. That's how they make money. It's not that you made profit. It's not that, because the federal government is not a federal government that's going to make profit. The federal government is in debt. So when he says we made profit, no, they made profit as a private institution, because every money, anything they issue, and the Treasury Department, they call it Treasury bills sometimes, and they go out and sell it to you, because that's how they make money. They will go out and raise money from you through the Treasury bills, and through selling these bills to actually big countries who will buy. Now, you will buy your $20 and $30 and $100 and $10,000, but you have countries who will buy billions of dollars, and these people end up making money on that. Not you, not the federal government, but the Federal Reserve Bank, which is not a federal agency. I want you to play that again, and I want you to listen to what he said now. He's trying to make it as if the government made money. No, they did, and you know who they are. Let's do it.
Profit center for the U.S. government. We've turned over profits in the last 2 years of $125 billion. So we are not costing any money in terms of budget deficits or anything like that. In terms of what we were trying to do, of course, the reason the Federal Reserve was founded a century ago was to try to address the problems arising from financial panics, which did, by the way, occur in an unregulated environment in the 19th century. We provided liquidity and short-term loans to help financial systems stabilize. We did that not because we particularly care about the managers or the shareholders of financial firms.
Okay, stop it.
I hate to interrupt, but my time is about up.
Okay.
I would like to.
Stop it for a second. Yeah, it is true that a little over a century ago, it started back in 1907, and it is true that they started because there was a controversy with only few people controlling the money and controlling the money supply in the United States. So a lot of people, you in the streets, started saying, whoa, wait a minute, that's only a few families. So what did this few families did? They went and met in Jekyll Island, right there in Georgia. They decided, let's make something and introduce it to the people as the answer to their financial problems and as the answer to the people who are controlling the money, even though they're the same people who are controlling the money. So they got a cricket senator who actually passed that, the Federal Reserve Act of 1911. That's when it was actually made legal. Now, he's saying they made profit for the federal government. He's lying. Did not make profit for the federal government. He's lying. And that he is, they made $125 billion. Yeah, they made, I believe they made that, $125 billion. Where they got the $125 billion? They sell our government the money. How they do it? Because when they give it to banks, it goes through that. When they give it to banks, Where do you think they got that money from? Can he answer where they got that money from? Do they have any gold to back that money? Or are they just on the computer? They don't even need to print anymore. On the computer, they'll be saying, okay, well, let's send $100 billion. Okay, give $100 billion. Well, they don't give the federal government $100 billion. They take actually, they bill the federal government with $100 billion, but the federal government does not receive that because they take their interest right off the top. And you, the taxpayer, would have to pay that money for them to make $125 billion in profit. Let's go ahead and continue with this. And listen carefully.
Suggest that you say it's not spending money. Well, it's money out of thin air. You put it into the market and you hold assets, and the assets aren't, they are diminishing in value when you buy up bad assets. But very quickly, if you could answer another question, because I'm curious about this. The price of gold today is $1,580. The dollar during these last 3 years was devalued almost 50%. When you wake up in the morning, do you care about the price of gold?
Well, I pay attention to the price of gold, but I think it reflects a lot of things. It reflects global uncertainties. I think the reason people hold gold is as a protection against what we call tail risk, really, really bad outcomes. And to the extent that the last few years have made people more worried about the potential of a major crisis, then they have gold as a protection.
Do you think gold is money?
No.
It's not money. Even if it has been money for 6,000 years, somebody reversed that and eliminated that economic law.
Well, it's an asset. I mean, it's the same. Would you say Treasury bills are money? I don't think they're money either, but they're a financial asset.
Why do central banks hold it?
Well, it's a form of reserves.
Why don't they hold diamonds?
Well, it's tradition, long-term tradition.
Some people still think it's money. I yield back. My time is up.
Thank you.
Or it passed over your head. Gold, and it has been for the last 6,000 years, gold is what actually gives strength to your currency. Central banks have all over the world hold gold. These people don't hold gold. These people make money out of thin air. They just make it and you buy it. Because there's no such a thing as federal government paying back. There's no such a thing. There's not a live person called federal government can pay. No. There's a live person sitting there looking at me, watching this program, who's going to have to pay back all this money. Gold. Do you know what the Constitution says about making money? Do you know what the Constitution says who actually can make money? It's Congress. That's what it says in the Constitution. It didn't say Federal Reserve Bank. It says the Congress of the United States is actually the one that issues money and issues currency. And the world knows that if you don't have anything to support your currency with, then you have a problem. Then you're going to have a problem. And we have a huge problem. You cannot support currency that you issue. You cannot support currency that you issue with debt. You can't say, oh yeah, give me $10,000. They are mortgaging your future. Not really your future, because your future is gone. I don't care how old you are, even if you were born today. They are mortgaging your children's future, the ones who haven't been born yet. They're mortgaging our children's future. You think they're ever going to catch up? No. They're never going to catch up. Because, look at the value of the dollar. Did you realize, the government tries to tell you, oh, inflation is okay. Inflation is okay. I guess, what do? They don't go to grocery stores. They just get home and the nanny has cooked the food. They have no clue who went shopping. They have no clue where the money came from because they got plenty of it, because most of them probably either, businessmen or crooks who make money somehow. Somebody put them there in Washington. Have they been to the grocery store lately? Have they seen how much things are? I told you the dollar was going to be devalued 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I said it's going to be devalued, and I explained to you what it means to be devalued. When you take $100 today and you go grocery shopping, you will see. You will see how much your value, the dollar, the value of the dollar is. You will see. And I'm sure you still remember what you used to buy for $100 in the grocery store. Let's go to the phones. We have Winston on the line. Winston, welcome to the program.
Yes, sir. I'm enjoying it very much.
Thank you.
I've been around quite a while, and I've heard the same story for years and years and years, how it's going to affect your children, your grandchildren, and so forth. That story's been going around for at least one generation, and we don't see anything actually happening to affect our children or our grandchildren after all of this time. What makes you think that this is going to be any different? And I'll hang up and listen.
Thank you. Well, I don't know if you're saying it's not affecting your children or my children. Apparently, you're doing good, and your children are doing good. But look at the people in the United States. Look at the people in the United States. Their spending power. Look at the people. Look at how many people are out of their homes because they're defaulted on their mortgages. And you know why you don't see it now? Because there are still people out there who are willing to buy our treasury bills for our government to actually take care of many of the people who probably cannot take care of themselves. Right now, we're borrowing that money to do it. Right now, we cannot borrow a lot of money, by the way. And everything that has been happening, we have been living on our reputation. If you haven't seen that on the streets of the United States, you need to go out there and see it. It has been affecting the future of our children. When they told you that for years and years, yes, now it is there. It is there. But now the federal government still mortgaging this country, still mortgaging your future, and still mortgaging your child that was born today, still mortgaging his taxes because they're telling the borrowers that we're going to have so many people working and they're going to be paying taxes and you're going to get paid. People who haven't even born yet. That's why. You haven't seen it as in many countries because our reputation's still okay, but once it's gone, it's gone. It has been deteriorated for a long time. China, that used to be very much says, oh, the United States wants to sell us some bills? Yes, welcome. Now we are begging the Chinese. Our Secretary of State was there last year, begging them, for God's sake, buy this. We need the money. We need the $5 trillion that we spent on banks. We need the $5 trillion that we spent on this economy. Stimulus? You remember the stimulus? Where do you think that money came from? We begged for it. We twisted some arms. If we did not, your children, my children would probably be out in the street. So if it's not happening to my children and your children, just wait. Just wait. How long are we going to be able to raise this debt ceiling? And you know what? As far as I'm concerned, it's not the debt ceiling. Because they can raise it to 100 trillion. That's not the problem. The problem is, are we going to have people out there who are going to loan us the money? That's what the problem is. And I don't think so. Now, once we don't have people to loan us the money, then the government has no choice but to come to you. Because remember, there's no such a thing as a government that's going to pay money. No, it's going to come to you. And when they can't find somebody else to pay that, then they're going to come to you and tell you, we have to do the hard decisions here. You have to pay. Do we have countries that has 70 and over % of tax? Yes, we do. There are countries out there in Europe. The People pay up to 70% in taxes. We're not there yet. You know, the average person pays probably about 30, 35%. Just wait until it becomes 50% and 60% because it's going to come time. And you know what? These wars, they're not helping. We are spending a lot of money and a lot of efforts on wars. It's not helping. It's helping a segment of the society, those people who are involved in making weapons and supplying our army and maintaining our bases. Very few people. And you know what? He's right. Because how do you get money? How do you get money in an economy? How do you strengthen an economy? And how do you make people actually believe in your economy if you have your people, your consumers, if they spend your money? If they go out there and buy and buy and buy and buy, you stimulate the economy. If people have money in their hands, you're going to have a good, strong economy. Instead of giving it to all these bankers, $5 trillion, yes, it would have been. You would have given every person, as he said, every person in the United States $17,000. If you have a family of 5, just times 5, and that's how much you have. Now imagine if you would have received, last year, if you would have received 17,000 times the people you have in your house. Yeah, you would have went out there and spent the money. You would have strengthened the economy. Our factories would have been working. Our housing would have been working. Our industry would have been working. Would have put a lot of people back at work. What did we get? Yeah, you bailed out the bankers. What did they do with the money they had? $2 million in bonuses and $3 million in bonuses and $15 million in bonuses here and there. That's what you paid? Didn't you think it would have been a hell of a lot better if you would have given $17,000 to every person in the United States and say, take it? Because you know most people are not going to go and take that and just put it in a savings account. No. Most people would have taken that money and went out there, enjoyed it, bought a new car, probably got out of the house they are in, probably paid some of their mortgages, probably paid some of their loans, probably paid some of their debts that they have, probably lowered their debt ceiling a little bit because now they have more money, probably paid for their schools, probably paid for their health care, probably paid for whatever. That's how you stimulate the economy, by having more money in the hands of the people to go out there and spend so others can work. That's how you do it. Anyway, we only have a couple of minutes left, actually. You know, sometimes just things are not what it seems. And this big thing that you see on TV with the two parties fighting, and you are sucked in to the issues they're fighting about. That's not the issue. The issue is, how are we going to manage our affairs as a country? What are our priorities? How come they're not talking? Nobody's saying anything about $10 billion going to Israel. What are we getting for that? No one can even mention that. No one can mention that. Don't expect them. You know what? When it comes to domestic issues like this, you will see red and blue half and half. But when it comes to things that have to do with Israel, you're not going to see anyone actually touching that. Yeah, get that $10 billion back and put it in the hands of the people, because we're not getting anything. Get that $1 trillion back that we spend on fireworks over Baghdad. Put it in the hands of the people. We never had it anyway. It was all money borrowed. That's the thing. It was all money borrowed. Do you know how much we borrowed so far? Do you know how much we have to pay back? $14 trillion. That's how much we have to pay back, because comes August, we're maxed. We cannot borrow anymore. That's our debt. That's how much we owe people. $14 trillion. You know what $1 trillion is? Do the math. Do the math. Find out how much your share is. Winston, find out how much each one of your children's share is. That $14 trillion that we borrowed. And that's at a time when people believed in our dollars. And that's at a time when our dollars actually meant something. Anyway, that's politics, and that is you. And by the way, what Winston said is true because you haven't felt it yet. Your children haven't felt it. But once they do, a revolution. That's all we have for you tonight. Good night. We'll see you in 2 weeks.